Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the episode of Blockchain in Real Estate as a Source for Good. My name is Menno Lammers and I'm the founder of Proptech for Good Alliance. And the Proptech for Good Alliance connects CEOs, entrepreneurs, investors, innovators, and sustainability leaders from all around the world to initiate meaningful collaborations, exchange knowledge, and build thought leadership to create a resilient, responsible, and regenerative environment. And this episode is produced in collaboration with Bronckers of FIBREE. Welcome, Jo. And can you tell us something about FIBREE and about yourself?
Yes, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Bronckers from the Netherlands, one of the co-founders of FIBREE. We are a non-profit organization, the Foundation for International Blockchain and Real Estate Expertise. We have around 125 people representing our organization around the world. And they all run their own local networks. And they want to bring together people who like to explore how blockchain can be applied in real estate processes. So what you see is that in our network, we have people with real estate, IT, government, legal, or research background. And by uniting them, sharing expertise like we do today, we want to explore how blockchain can be applied in this industry.
Awesome, great. And today we have 4 guests who will give a short presentation, and after that we have a Q&A session. So if you have a question, please add it in the chat. So we will answer them after all the presentations. Jo, who are our guests and speakers of today?
Yeah, I want to share it in the screen with you. Today we have the topic, of course, Proptech, blockchain real estate as a source for good. And we have the following speakers. We have from the UK representing CBRE, Saull. He has done extensive research in how technology can be applied in real estate. And from his experience and background, he wants to explain how he sees the application of technologies like blockchain in the field of ESG and SDG know-how about buildings. Then we have from Bulgaria running a Dutch BV, Emiliyan Enev. They're one of the winners of the Dutch Odyssey hackathon, the largest blockchain hackathon in the world last year. And they have been working on creating a solution to gather information from buildings, applying something called a unique object identifier. And today he presents what they're building, a solution to structure and to aggregate ESG data. Third, we go to Australia. We have Srinath Perera. He is professor at the Western Sydney University, but also director at the Center for Smart Modern Construction. This center was founded a couple of years ago, and they focus primarily on developing solutions for the built environment, supply chain solutions in construction. And they're already developing some products where blockchain is applied to get better understanding, better collection of data. And he will tell us about all these experiments they are doing and all the know-how they develop. And then last but not least, we're very happy to have Eric Peters here. Eric Peters, he is representing the European Commission. FIBREE is one of the partners of New European Bauhaus. And as probably all of you know, one of the big policy issues, policy objectives in Europe is to get a reduction of CO2 footprints. And the real estate sector can have a big role in that. And Eric's background from New European Bauhaus, but also from the digital infrastructure part of the European Commission, is exactly the intersection where we can see how better information exchange can help achieving these CO2 reduction policy objectives in the built environment. And we hope he can tell us what New European Bauhaus has in mind and how we can benefit all by having this program and how we can attach to that. So I think we have some very great speakers, and we're watching forward. We're looking forward to what they can tell us.
Awesome. Thank you, Jo, for this brief introduction. I want to ask Andy to share his screen so he can start his presentation. Oh,
one other thing we want to say to everybody, people, if you have questions, please use the chat window. but we will keep all the questions until we have all the 4 presentations. Afterwards, we will start the Q&A, and then we first look to all the questions we find in chat windows. So please fire your questions to the panelists, but know that we only come back to them after all the 4 presentations.
Thank you, guys. Cheers, Menno. Cheers, Yo. I'll do a really brief introduction because it might be a bit strange. People thinking, you know, who's this guy from CBRE talking about blockchain? I previously studied the Oxford Blockchain Strategy Program. This was about 2 years ago. So I went from kind of learning about blockchain to then being involved in the Oxford Future Real Estate Initiative, where we researched Proptech quite heavily. And so I kind of went from learning to researching blockchain. I then joined PILabs, who are a European Proptech investor. So I went to then investing in kind of some of these solutions. And now with CBRE, I kind of help out on the digital advisory side. So helping clients realize how technology can improve their assets. And one of those technologies we're exploring is blockchain. So I've gone from kind of learning to researching to investing, now advising. I do have to point out that this isn't a CBRE official stance on blockchain whatsoever. It's just my own personal meandering thoughts from my various research papers I've written. So let me see if I can. So my kind of experience with blockchain started at Oxford. I wrote a report where we just looked at kind of some of the applications of blockchain within real estate called Proptech 2020. We then went further into the idea of tokenizing assets and looking at how blockchain could achieve this increased liquidity within the capital markets. We looked at a report on transactions, so how blockchain could be used for land registries and speeding up the conveyancing process. And then more recently with PILabs, I wrote a report looking at how technology can improve the wealth of ESG-data in the real estate industry. And today I'm going to talk to you about these 2 papers, the transactions paper and the ESG paper. Please go away if you're interested in tokenization and read that report, because it is excellent, and it looks at some really timely questions about the use of cryptocurrency tokenization within real estate. So my role within these organizations has very much been to uncover the problems. I'm not a blockchain architect, I don't code, but I find that in exploring the art of the possible and trying to understand what can be done, you actually uncover a load of cracks along the way. The way I like to think about blockchain currently is kind of thinking about the space race back in the 1960s. You know, NASA put a man on the moon, yet none of us have ever been to the moon, still over 60 years later. But what that has done is it's increased things such as space flights, transport. There's been over 2,000 spin-out technologies that are now used in everyday life from that NASA space program. So just because you and I haven't been to the moon doesn't mean that we shouldn't be trying to go to the moon, because of all the efficiencies down the value chain that it can improve. So I really like to think of blockchain as this, you know, it may one day have a solution, but the pursuit of understanding its application to real estate, I think, is very noble. So I said I look at some of the problems, and I think I'm going to kind of talk to you about the problems my research has dug up, and then some of the solutions that I think blockchain could offer. Firstly, we wrote this report. So I said I talked to you about the transactions, and we very much looked at why blockchain couldn't be applied to a real estate transaction. Number one is the idea that real estate relies on analog processes. We outlined 150 different actions that need to occur for a commercial conveyance, and most of them, if not all of them, are some kind of paper-based or verbal agreement or handwritten, hand-signed documentation. For a real estate transaction to occur, as this kind of diagram on the left shows, we need digital data. If we're going to have lease agreements, smart contracts, automated payments, all these systems already need to be digitalized and sat in some kind of electronic blockchain digital-based system. The next point, oops, sorry, I can't actually read my own notes because my taskbar's in the way, excuse me. I'm just going to move this down. The next point that we discovered is that most of these blockages within that 150-step process could be resolved if there was a single pool of accessible, up-to-date, standardized real estate data. That sounds like we're dreaming, but there are certainly a few companies trying to do this at the moment. The first is this idea of a materials passport. So when we're building a property, can we document every single brick, material, fabric that goes into that building, so that when it comes to knocking it down or refurbishing it, we don't just throw away these products. We can actually reuse them, we can recycle, we can build this circular economy, which again, with blockchain for good being the topic of this discussion, there's a huge use case there whereby we should be documenting what goes into the buildings to lower their embodied carbon. Second is the idea of a digital twin. So can we embed sensors within a building, which can then pull real-time operational information about how that building is being run, to improve the energy efficiency, kind of in a separate computer program that reflects what is occurring in that building in real time. And finally, the idea of a property passport. Can we keep all the legal information that needs to be transferred at a transaction inside a single document that would speed up the conveyancing process? The problem with all of these is there's no legal obligation currently for doing so, and there is no market premium. So if I have a building with a full material passport, digital twin, and a property passport, and it's the most data-rich building in the world, currently the market will not sell that or buy that at a premium to any other asset, which is certainly a problem for motivating anybody to keep this information up to date. That's not to say the technology can't do it. So there's a group in the UK called Coadjute, and they have done blockchain-based transactions. I'm sure there are many more that Yo and Menno could tell me about. And it took just 36 minutes. So the problem isn't the blockchain technology. The problem is the lack of digital data and the lack of regulatory framework currently. So I said that there's no mandation, there's no understanding about how legally we can transfer titles, deeds, data, information about real estate on a blockchain. And there are two real large problems that we found in this report. One is the problem of caveat emptor. So this means buyer beware. During any real estate transaction, the buyer is liable for any defects once that building has been passed on to them. So that means currently the way we overcome this is by the buyer's lawyer checking all the information that the purchaser's lawyer has already checked. So there's a huge duplication of data validation about the state of that property. Are there any defects? Is the title owner the correct person? And all this information is gathered whilst the building's being sold, and then also checked once the building before the building has been bought. And this causes a huge friction and slowdown, and all this data transaction is a major blockage in the transaction process. Finally, I mentioned, there's no legal or incentive to hand on this maintenance and operational data. So what are some of the solutions? I'm aware I've got 2 minutes left, so I'll fly through these. Well, the first is the idea that IoT, smart building technology, and blockchain could facilitate the collection and storage of data. So why is this important? Well, I mentioned earlier that there's this duplication of validation that occurs because currently there's a very human process by which we gather and check the data about a building's condition. Yet with IoT, the information would be real-time, live, void from human error. And that would enable the physical asset to be tracked in and validated from the moment we start building it, all throughout operation. And if it's put into a blockchain, then that information is immutable and validated and can't be tampered with. So that would speed up a transaction already. However, the real interest for me in blockchain comes with a kind of a new name for what I think used to be called a colored coin, called a non-fungible token. This is the idea that the original owner of any data can actually be rewarded by each subsequent transaction of that data when put on a blockchain. So as a really quick example, when we buy a car, the person that invented the wheels gets paid by the manufacturer of that car. However, when we buy a second-hand car, the person who invented those wheels gets no money whatsoever. If that was a blockchain-based system, each subsequent sale, second, third, fourth hand of that car, the owner of those, the designer of those wheels, the manufacturer of those wheels could receive payment because they're still getting there's still a lot of utility in the use of those wheels by the car, by each subsequent owner. This has also been done with music, where there's a platform called Mycelia, where there's only one source of a song has ever been made. So you can't download the MP3, you can't copy it or write it or send it to your friend. The single source of that song sits on a blockchain. So anytime a radio wants to use that music, or anytime, a TV show wants to use that music, they have to use that single source, which enables the tracking of the use of those songs to be fully accurate, and then the recording artist to be remunerated more appropriately. So last slide. Finally, I've been talking about why on earth anybody would keep building information up to date, and currently how there's no motivation for people to do so. Well, if it came to be that a building with a full service history, with all this information, the property passport, materials passport, could transact for more money than a fuller asset because it can be run more efficiently, thus saving the new owner money, it should come to fruition that a building with a full service history should be worth more money. Sorry, I'm trying to click through. So if we were to take this information about a building that isn't legally required to be transacted and put it in some kind of NFT, at each subsequent transaction, the original creator of the original creator of that operational data would receive payment for its use. So it could really motivate the market to suddenly start collecting information and sharing information on energy efficiency, on social sustainability, on asset use, on material embodied carbon, and thus really drive a more sustainable industry as a result of this increased ESG data being transacted as buildings are transacted as well. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing. I'm sorry I went a little bit over my time, and I look forward to your questions at the end. So thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for sharing your insightful presentation. Our next speaker will be Emiliyan Enev. Please, Emiliyan, share your screen and.
Yes. Hi everyone. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Actually, I'm quite excited because there is a very good transition between Andy's presentation and mine. Lots of overlapping topics, but actually I'm excited because we reached the same conclusions independently. So it will be a very good continuation. So I will try to make the presentation really clear and to the point. First of all, congrats with this FIBREE report about the importance of transparency. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context and to summarize what are the biggest challenges currently in the way ESG data is being sourced, is being processed, is being accessed and used for decision making. Of course, these metrics are not mature, and this is evolving landscape. There are different standards and lots of fragmentation, and of course, the biggest differences from one region to another. On the other hand, there is this problem with greenwashing, selectively choosing some ESG criteria, ESG factors, and presenting the performance according to these factors and neglecting other criteria. By the way, if you have not checked this FIBREE report that Andy shared, please, if you're working in this domain, check it. It's full with interesting data and insights. Okay, of course, there is this challenge that when you operate the building, usually it is much less efficiently than intended than the design. And that's why it's so crucial to collect, to process, to analyze this data at the operational stage of the building. One of the biggest bottlenecks at this moment is how you can extract data from tenants and how you can incentivize tenants to share sensitive information and data, for example, about energy performance, energy consumption. One of the biggest problems is, of course, is that once you sell the property, lots of information gets lost because it is being processed and stored in different silos, databases, it's on paper. And when you transfer the property, this information usually is either lost or partially shared with the new buyer. And of course, this leads to vague and hard to understand ESG scores. So what is the solution? As Andy shared, if we can connect different IoT devices, different sensors to the building, and if we can start to acquire data from these devices, and this data is certified, we create these fingerprints of data on blockchain, we can dramatically increase the level of trust and security of the information, and we can make sure that this information really comes from the right source. You can trace it, for example, to the sensor, and we can start to create this trusted history of the building. So the solution that we are developing, and this is part of projects that we implement for the Dutch government and for companies in Netherlands. It is about extracting, acquiring this data from multiple sources. This could be also tenants, this could be third parties, this could be sensors. Then this data is being structured, normalized. So we apply a unique object identifier, that's a new protocol, ensuring seamless data exchange and creating identifiers at different levels of the buildings. Of course, this information is anonymized, and everything is managed in a privacy-preserving way. So the overall result is that we have comparable and transparent metrics, because at this moment it's very, very difficult to compare the performance of different buildings because of this fragmentation, because of different silos. The structuring and the normalization enable this opportunity to analyze the performance at different levels, at the level of the portfolio, at the level of different buildings, and even at the level of one room or parts like floors of the buildings. Since this is organized, based on decentralized data management, actually different users, based on their roles, based on their rights, can access and verify information in dashboards. So the way data is being accessed and shared is optimized in a secure and efficient way. Okay, so why blockchain is so important in this game? Of course, it's about boosting the level of trust and security with creating these records in immutable environment. As I mentioned, decentralized digital identities will play a very important role in the future. So there is this regulatory initiative in Europe called European Digital Identity Wallet. So it is about giving control and ownership over data to the users. And in the future, many platforms will become user-centric or human-centric. So users will log in with their identities, they will do authentication, they will share selectively some information, but also they will get access to certain data. So that's why blockchain can play a very important role in this game. As Andy shared, of course, you can leverage this infrastructure to incentivize data contributions, for example, to reward users that provide some meaningful data, let's say photo of the real estate or data about energy performance or air quality or something that can be reused in the future to evaluate the performance. It's very crucial to have some uniform identifiers. That's why we are leveraging the unique object identifier, because we need these data models, we need these metadata layers. And the final result is creating this trusted history of the building, transferable and verifiable as NFT. I think I ran out of time. Am I right, Menno?
You're doing great. Thank you, Emiliyan. Thank you for sharing an insightful presentation. Our next speaker will be Srinath Perera. Please, Srinath, open your presentation and share your story with the audience.
Hope it is visible now.
Yes, awesome.
Okay, so thank you, you and Menno. It's a pleasure to present at this forum on blockchain. I think Andy gave a very good introduction of blockchain, so I can hopefully build on that with several applications. What I'm going to present is 4 applications of blockchain that we are developing for construction, but it's only 4 of about 20 projects that we are working on in the Center for Smart Modern Construction. Out of these, most are related to digitalization of construction and several other projects using blockchain technology as well. The first one I'm presenting is about developing a blockchain-based e-procurement framework for construction supply chains. What happens in construction supply chains, they have one of the most complicated supply chains for any sector. So the complication is such that there is issues coming out of that, making it fairly difficult to procure effectively any component through the supply chain. So if you look at this supply chain on the left here, we can see from the main contractor to the raw material extraction point, there is a very complicated supply chain. And what happens there is construction industry doesn't have payment for whenever goods and services provided, you don't get paid immediately. You always paid after the several months, because there is check-in processes, there are various protocols to follow, and subsequently down the supply chain, you are looking at 6 months to even 1 year delay in payment for this. So what happens then is everybody has to finance their production. And what happens as a consequence is the finance costs are passed on to the next layer and to the next layer and so on. Eventually, the client pay the cost of finance as well. So we find our construction industry is producing goods and services that are basically buildings that are about 30% more than what it should be. We can eliminate all that using blockchain, and that's why we are looking at this. And we are in the process of developing a solution for this towards the end of that development cycle. We have completed our data modeling and is in the stage of implementing the blockchain prototype system. So moving on to the next one, basically, we're looking at the question of how to certify payments, how to make sure catastrophic building failures don't apply. And when it happens, people responsible are accounted for. At the moment, it's very difficult to pinpoint responsibility. And blockchain is a very good solution for that. And this project is looking at creating a solution for exactly for payment certification assurance in the building sector. So we are looking at the activities, how payments are made, how building products and components are certified by architects, by engineers, by various certifiers in the sector, and then create a system that captures everything. Then the next one we are looking at is basically a project where embodied carbon estimating can be done on blockchain. So there was a lot of discussion earlier on from Andy's presentation and also on the previous presentation on operational carbon side being important. Embodied carbon estimating is one of the most difficult points where carbon estimating is not accurately done at the moment. If you use different database, you get a different result. And the issue is that there is no consistency. So what we have done is develop a framework where we use the blockchain in a supply chain to capture embodied carbon occurrences at each node of the blockchain. So this process is simply can be explained in this diagram as there are various building operations happening. This is a set of fume pipes being produced in the factory. There's embodied carbon addition. It is transported. It is then put into trenches, compacting, laying fume pipes, and then completing the job. Every stage, there is carbon emissions happening. We will be able to capture carbon emissions at every stage in the node of the supply chain. And we have developed a prototype for that, which is called the Beck estimator, which use a supply chain embodied carbon estimating protocol, which we developed using blockchain. And that project is now completed pretty much. We are looking at extrapolating that into real scale operations. The last one I'm going to present is basically land blocks, which I suggest you watch our video on this particular one. Please search on Google the word land blocks for a video, and you will get the video address is given here. I'm not going to show the video. It's only 2 minutes. Watch it and you will understand the application. But briefly, I will explain. Here's the property scenario. And again, Andy and a few others were talking about it, how property transactions do happen. Different countries, slightly different protocols, processes are there, but essentially it is heavily transactional. And again, Andy was talking about how redundant transactions happen, how cross-checking one by one lawyer and then another lawyer and coordination of that, all these happens. And what we are saying is we can put them all together into one system. Here I've just showed one of our publications on digital procurement on blockchain, which I will talk about in a minute. But in this particular application is already operational. We have developed a demonstrable prototype where we can do land transactions. We are looking at commercial applications at the moment of developing it into the next stage to a MVP and go from there to the market. We have the blockchain system working. It uses Hyperledger as the platform for blockchain. And it can track all transactions from one scale to the other. There are a few publications that we have made, which I will just briefly present that you might be interested in. Blockchain is hype or real, that and then free download application paper on next stage of digital procurement of blockchain in academia. Again, you can search and download these things free of charge. We have so many different publications that we have done over the years on blockchain, and a few more I haven't updated it, a bit outdated in that. It will be useful for anyone to learn. And finally, just the digitalization report that we recently published, which will be useful for you. I'm happy to make the slides available for anyone, so you can download this from open sources. Thank you.
Thank you, Srinath. Really great and a great addition on the previous presentation. So thank you for that. Our next speaker is Eric Peters. Eric, can you share your slides and start your presentation? You're still on mute. Please unmute yourself.
Okay, trying to get some.
Great.
I'm fine now. Okay.
Yes, we see your slides, and if you have the presenter mode, we're all good. Thank you.
Oh, good. Thank you very much. So, thank you for Proptech and FIBREE for this opportunity to discuss blockchain and real estate. I mean, today we have heard a lot about the offer side of these new technologies. So, how these emerging technologies bring new opportunities. I mean, the challenges that they are facing. I would like now to turn to the other side, which is more the demand side. As Andy mentioned previously, we need a market, we need a demand for fostering the rise of these new technologies, and particular blockchain in this sector. And I would like to discuss, and my story to this morning is about the new European House initiative as a way to foster and to drive digital technologies that meet a sense of purpose and that meets very important societal objectives. So you certainly know the Bauhaus movement initiated by Walter Gropius at the start of the 20th century. And the ambition that he had was to revolutionize the conception and design of buildings to make them both more affordable and beautiful. So like in the start of the 20th century, we are facing quite important transformation, and we are also having a lot of societal challenges. And this is why the president of the Commission decided to launch this initiative, which seeks to bring together architects, designers, engineers, scientists, to work together on concrete projects that will help making a concrete representation of what the green transition means for people. It means to have at the core of it 3 clear objectives: to make buildings and building environment more sustainable, with circularity at the center, zero pollution, biodiversity, sustainable and climate-friendly buildings. The second element is about aesthetic. I mean, people need to live in nice environment, in beautiful environment, in stylish environment. And this is important for everyone. This is why we have also this inclusive element that needs to be addressed, which is to address diversity, but also affordability. So that people can have a concrete experience in their living spaces. And of course, these 3 elements, sustainability, beautiful, and together, are not just ideas up in the air. I mean, they need to meet concrete interest and motivation by people, which is reconnecting to nature, regaining a sense of belonging, prioritizing the places and people that need it the most. So this is something that is concrete. And this is not just a classical project. It's something that we are designing as a movement. So in a sense, this is not our initiative. This is the initiative of everyone in Europe first, but even broadly. So we have tried to build a movement by outreaching people, organizations, and Proptech is part of the partners that we have to build that. And the idea is really to be a catalyzer, to have zillions of projects everywhere in Europe and elsewhere that could give a concrete realization of this initiative. In a nutshell,
Eric,
yes.
Your
yes.
slides are still on the first slide, so maybe you're already presenting all the slides, but it's stuck.
How is it stuck?
Yeah, it's working, but it's not on the present. If you put it on the presenter mode.
Okay. So
hopefully.
So the second slide on the 3 key elements, then the need for bringing a movement and then bringing to an inclusive element where we can bring all our partners, all interested parties from the private and from the public sector, citizens also to be involved in that project. That's the aim of the movement. Maybe a couple of very concrete elements. So what we are trying to do now is to have an impact on 3 directions. So first, to have concrete pilots which transform the place on the ground, which means new project, new buildings, new ways of managing cities that can emerge in the next 2 years. Second is really to have an effect on the ecosystem. So to not just on the policy actors, but on the private business actor. So enabling the ecosystem together, universities, think tanks, business, NGOs, cities to work together. And we are leveraging a lot of our ecosystem on that, in particular the digital innovation hubs. I will come back to that later. The third element is that we are not going to succeed unless there is a new way of working, more transdisciplinary, inclusive, to have people from art and culture to discuss with scientists. And that's a very important objective. And concretely, we are mobilizing now a set of EU program. Overall, it's about 85 million call for tenders that will be sent between now and early next year, that will steer new project, that will finance new project, and that will, in a sense, catalyze the start of the initiative. We are going also to launch an NEB lab and a festival that will, again, think on new ideas and provide for new solutions. That will be open after this semester. Now, I mean, you can say, okay, in a webinar dealing with blockchain and technology. So what does that mean exactly for me? So maybe one example on the role that technologies will play and digital technologies will play in that regard. We are not going to succeed unless information is shared, unless there is trust in this information, unless there is new technologies that will help concertation and co-design of this project. And this is here the slide where I would like to share with you on the role of digital twins, for instance. I mean, we have been referring already in this conversation on these twins. These are very important because they are the center of the process where which we will have both the data available, but also the software and AI services that will provide for a treatment of this data. And all this at the service of co-design with citizens and to following the flow of information all along the life cycle of the project, from the very start to the very end. And in a sense, these local digital twins are critical and will be supported as part of the NEB initiative. But of course, the digital technologies role is much broader. I've mentioned the need for data and information sharing. Of course, I mean, we are talking to different communities, to scientists, to designers, to architects, citizens, cities. All these people need to share the same data in order to do something in common. Trust is really at the center. So blockchain here has a critical role in order to make sure that this information is information that can be trusted. And that's very important in such projects that are very long to develop and that are also very important, that are bearing a lot of financial dimension. So that's critical, and blockchain solution to build trust around the different actors is critical. I've mentioned the local digital twins that will be operated. We are going to launch a code on that in order to make sure that we can have Lighthouse very quickly. And we are not going just on the short term. We are also looking beyond, and we are going to launch a series of pilots to experiment and test solutions that will use AI testing, but also that will be also using technologies to make smarter cities, and also in different areas, in yields, for instance, how we can build buildings that will enable a diversity of population to live in them, and in particular to have to bridge generation divide. So to have buildings which will enable people from different ages to come together. And of course, all the means that we are developing, all the projects we are thinking are also linked to our broader objective for the EU to become a leader in blockchain. And here, I mean, you certainly know the different initiatives that we have at the moment. I mean, we have a partnership. We are building a service infrastructure in Europe. We are having different activities, and these activities will be also echoed in the recent Digital Decade plan that the EU has proposed in order to develop blockchain all across Europe and to address, in a sense, all the challenges that most of the speakers have mentioned before me in their presentation. So I will stop here just saying that everyone has a role to play in this initiative. So if you feel interested, if you want to have more information, don't hesitate to go and go in the internet website of the New European Bauhaus. There are calls for tender that will be launched or are launched as of today. And if necessary, don't hesitate to come back to me. And I look forward to discussing and responding to any question that we will have now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you very much, all the previous speakers. I think it is very inspiring what you told us, and perhaps in the audience there are some questions you want to ask to these 4 panelists. So please use the chat window or the Q&A window for that. And I saw there were already some questions, and some of them already have been answered. So put some questions there. But in the meantime, I have one question for all of you. I think when I heard Andy's presentation in the beginning, he told us that there's at the moment a lack of legal and economic incentive for deploying these new technologies. And then I saw with Emiliyan and Srinath showing different products that they are developing. But then again, I hear from the demand side from Eric's presentation that we need to organize things. But when I go back to the beginning, when there's no legal and when there's no economic incentive, what exactly, what is the time what the products need, and what the demand really concrete is bringing to the market, so that we can do these experiments. And I think the facilitations that Bauhaus will give, 85 million, seems very attractive. But there's a lot that needs to be done. And how can these solutions that use blockchain, how can we leverage them towards the market? What can you do and what do you need? A question to all 4, I think. Perhaps we start with the 2 suppliers, Srinath and Emiliyan. Can you explain what is the challenge that you face most? And then we ask Andy and Eric to reflect on how the market can react to that.
If I go on that, actually, industry or commercial organizations doesn't care about the technology. They want a solution for their problem. Technology is important for us who are working with technology and try to provide solutions. So they don't care whether it is blockchain or any other technology, as long as their problem is resolved. So why government and others need support? Because they can understand technology, and if technology is not supported at its initial stages, then they could take a long time to get embedded in commercial arena and be profited from it and then go on. But if, on the other hand, government and other organizations support it, embrace it, will be in a position to fast track the application of the technologies. So therefore, that's the most important thing. Governments being proactive, recognizing the need for the capabilities of the technology and how it could benefit the society, and understanding that and providing a solution is what we need to think about. Yeah. And that's what we are expecting.
Yeah. Emiliyan, what are the challenges you face most?
Yeah, many challenges, and I completely agree with Srinath. So on one hand, the real estate sector is slow to adopt new technologies. There are these regulatory gray zones and uncertainties. I completely agree that we should not push the technology. So nobody cares how things work below the surface. So it's about bringing real value, providing solutions. I can say that there are a number of regulatory initiatives happening now, at least in Europe, at the level of the European Union, with the trust services, with how tokens are regulated, with how users can create their digital identities, how people can control data. So this is something that will accelerate the adoption of such solutions. But going back to your question about the challenges, it is about making something viable, something working, something small, something that can validate the value proposition, and building on top of this without strong technological explanations and pushing blockchain.
Okay, thank you. Then I see these initiatives and I think they're very good examples, the initiatives that we have here today. But then these are small initiatives, and then going to the larger institutions. I suppose you're on the demand side. How can these small examples, how can you use them and leverage them towards the scale we need in the market? What is needed for that? Or how can you boost this? Andy, what is your opinion on it?
I think the world and real estate are all faced with the same problem. We need to meet these sustainability targets. We aren't meeting them. We are falling far, far, far behind. Government regulation will come in and it will force minimum energy efficiency standards. The market will get squeezed so much that nothing but a carbon neutral, carbon negative building will do. And the way we report that, the way we create that is completely up in the air. Nobody knows what a carbon neutral building is. No one knows how to collect this data. All the benchmarks in the industry are completely warped. So the whole point that I wrote that transparency report was, I phoned up GRESB, the Global Real Estate Sustainability Benchmark, and I said, can you please give me some information on the systems in buildings that are required to reduce energy efficiency? And they said, oh no, we can't do that. And I said, well, hold on. The whole industry needs to retrofit to decarbonize by 2030 or 2050. You've been collecting sustainability information about millions of assets for 20 years, yet you can't tell me what small interventions need to occur in order to improve the energy efficiency of a single asset for the benefit of the property industry. So make no mistake, the current system is completely shocking. And so I don't necessarily think blockchain is 100% going to have the answer, but it is certainly one of the solutions that shows a lot of promise. And so I think the financial incentive is for the real estate owner, for the huge multi-billion portfolio fund. If they can find these efficiencies, if they can collect this ESG data from all their assets, manage them better, drive more financial value of their portfolios as a result, and blockchain happens to be the way they do that, I think that that there's a lot of money to be made here. There is a lot of good to be done. And so the exploration of all technology should be warranted both in the industry and by government. And obviously blockchain is going to fall within that kind of remit of, as we've explained, it has so many use cases for sustainable benefit. So that's kind of a bit of a cop-out answer, but also I think
it's how I take it away is that as long as appraisers are not able to calculate the extra, the value add of having all this information, then there's no motivation, there's no incentive for the market to improve on that. I think that's one of the messages that I have still in my mind.
So I would say not yet.
Mm-hmm.
I would say not yet. I would say the market will be able to appraise this data in the future. And so we need to be thinking about that now. In the same way that a green asset fetches a premium or is beginning to fetch a premium, in the future, an asset with a full maintenance history will, with a digital twin, will fetch a premium. So if we think about how we can store that, collect that information now, I think is a worthy pursuit.
Yeah, I think
sorry, go ahead, Srinath.
Simple analogy for that is car with a service history is more valuable than car without a service history. So that's what Andy's saying.
Okay, thank you. And before my response was, I see also that pension funds, for example, they're moving away from non-ESG performing investments. And I think you also see this movement more and more coming to the real estate market. So I think when we don't be able to provide this data in a trusted way, I think we're actually putting ourselves out of the market sooner or later. And therefore, I think this is also a reason why to do it. But let's go to the demand side, the legal demand side. Another thing that how can we use the right legislation or the right support from government to enhance this? Eric, what's your idea? Eric, are you still there? Can you hear us?
He's still logged in, but he's on mute.
Yeah. Well, then I go to some questions from the audience. How can farmers benefit from blockchain? What are incentives? I see that Emiliyan is answering it. Then
there's already use cases of farmers what's sort of collective in Australia, and because they share all the machinery, and the way they share that machinery is based on a blockchain token system, whereby they only get charged for the use. So if one farmer has a lot more land and needs to use the tractor or the combine harvester twice as much, they pay twice as much. And the way they divvy that up is on blockchain. I forget exactly where that use case is, but I'm sure a quick Google search should be able to find that use case for farmers that is live and currently happening.
There is a massive application of blockchain in one of my colleagues working in blockchain in my university is working on agri sector blockchain applications, and they have a massive application, real application in India and in Sri Lanka, covering small scale farmers when they produce goods to make it a platform to sell their goods and get funding also for it, get paid through the blockchain, and make sure that they don't go into debt, because these are mostly poor people who are relying on the payments coming on time, and this provides a very good solution for them in that.
Yeah.
Provides a very good solution.
Hear a voice from somebody. No. Looking to the hour, I think we do one last question. I've got some disturbance here at my side.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. Well, looking to clock, let's do one more question, and I think we see the solutions that we're working on. We see how they contribute to ESG or for good. But my question, I'm an advocate for blockchain, but there's a lot of digitalization we first need to do. Why do we already have to start with blockchain? Why not first organize the data structuring and then apply blockchain? What is your idea? Why should we not avoid already using blockchain?
I completely agree with you. I've just said exactly the same to someone on a private message who sat watching this chat. And it was all about that very first thing I opened with, which is like, when we aim for the stars, we can create loads of efficiencies on Earth. And the idea that we're striving for a blockchain-based system has made the whole real estate industry realize how bad its data is. We would never have gone and looked at our data structure, our data systems, had we not had AI blockchain pressing us to do so. And I can name hundreds of companies some that we're consulting and some that I know on who are trying to create this data, are trying to have a data strategy. They're trying to create a single data warehouse where all their information pulls up into one dashboard. And then not only blockchain, the Proptech efficiencies in general, the use cases will be huge once we have these pools of real estate data. So I think that data structuring is rapidly already underway.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Sorry, Srinath. Yeah, so I agree with Andy, and One of the things that I see recently is that this mentality of centralization, creating your data lake, creating your data warehouse is something very strong. And for me, blockchain is just a layer on top of existing systems. And it's a way to connect different players, different databases, different platforms, ensure that information is with high level of integrity. Based on the digital identities of the users, data registering, anchoring data on the blockchain. And then it's about creating a new digital infrastructure. So it is this decentralized way of thinking and decentralized business models is something that is emerging right now. And to some extent, this is in conflict with established models and mentalities. So this is one of the biggest bottlenecks that I see.
Srinath, your opinion on it?
On what you said, Joe, basically, blockchain is transactional based. So where there are transactions happening, blockchain works very well. And we do already have transactions, online transactions. We buy most of our material, goods and services online. And if we, without making it, without being visible to the user, we can take the underlying structures of those transactions into the blockchain and provide the necessary security and the guarantees and the transparency, trustworthiness into the transactions that we already do engage in by moving it into blockchain. That is why I think we don't need to wait till everything else fall in place to move on to blockchain. We can and should move on to that now and start moving on to now. Everything will not happen overnight. It will take years for things to come on board, but we should start. Australian Stock Exchange is already on blockchain. So that's a starting point where they have realized the value of it and gone in there.
Not a revolution, and it doesn't turn back.
Yeah.
Exactly. Eric, your opinion as the final opinion here in this webinar today. Why do you think new European Bauhaus and improving this digital twin environment in the European cities? Why do we need blockchain rather now than later? Eric, can you say what your thoughts about that are?
Yeah, I think, sorry, but my connection went to some problem. I hope you can hear me reasonably well. I think there are big issues, and then there is a sort of series of issues to be settled. First big issue is do we have the right infrastructure in terms of connectivity, in terms of data gathering, in terms of the basic. And here, honestly, Europe is now coping with the fact to do much more in order to invest in our spectrum and developing the tools. Then there is a second layer of issues that need to be addressed, which is how making sure that data can flow. And here again, we have a strategy on data that we are developing in order to make sure that we can make the best of data that are collected, and non-personal data in particular. And then there is a third element, which is concretely in the real estate, in the building sector, do we have a specificity here that needs to be addressed? And I think yes, in the sense that, if you look at the different sectors economically, the building sector, real estate sector is one of the sectors where digital have not really delivered all the potential of what it could be. We have seen in e-commerce a lot of development. We have seen in health now increasing development. Now we need to focus, and so it requires first there is a political focus and political demand from the to address the specific issues that are to get there in terms of digitalization. The digitalization hubs that we are having all across Europe are part of this story. So to show that we can bring AI solutions, cloud solutions, database solutions to private sector, to SMEs, to all the actors, bringing them into an ecosystem where universities, where tech operators are are ready there to do some pilot. I think that pilot is very important because pilot demonstrate that it works. If we can have, in the next 2 years, a set of systems that are being driven around specific projects, showing it can deliver, and identifying from a sort of what needed to be addressed, that's something that would make value. And in this context, the new UNR is one part of the story, and I think it's important because then it's also linking to Srinath only private business element, building sector, state. I think a societal project, how can be living together better and to build back better after COVID. And I think that if the actors of the real estate ecosystem were willing to engage in that, it will benefit not only in terms of new opportunities and businesses, but also in changing the way people will see the business, in the sense that, are helping us to become better and to have a better place to live in. So I think it's a win-win situation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you all the presenters for your stories. I saw some enthusiastic reactions already from the audience. For sure, this will not be the last time that we give attention to this topic, and I hope that it only started by today. So I invite everybody who sees this webinar to reach out to us. If you'd like to know more, let us know. We connect you with the presenters, and let's see how we can build back better together. I think that's the takeaway I want to leave it for. So have a nice day. Have a nice rest of the day, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Srinath. Thank you, Emiliyan. And also thank you, Jo, for co-hosting today. And also from my side, enjoy your day and speak to you all soon.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you, and everyone. Nice to meet you. Bye.